good afternoon and welcome. I thought we had the after lunch shot, but I think we've got the during lunch shot slot. So I was expecting to see quite. Is my mic working okay? Yeah? Come on. I was expecting to see more people here. I've just come from 2 days at Birmingham NEC, my home city, and this session was absolutely packed, so we need to get a few more in. Paul and I will introduce ourselves, and we're going to talk through how you can leverage both an LXP and an LMS together. I think there's a lot of misconception about what an LMS is and what an LXP is, and some people perhaps think they're the same. So we're going to spend the next 30 minutes trying to explain exactly what we perceive that to be and show you the software. So let's go. Next slide, please, Paul. Paul, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm a solution consultant. I basically press buttons and run demos. So
that's not true. He's the brains of this outfit for sure. So you've missed our introduction slide. Go back. So my name's Luke Hicks. I've been at Cornerstone for about 8 years, so lots of time spent in learning technology and about 15 years in general HR technology. So hopefully that will come through in this presentation. We're going to start with a bit of audience participation, assuming Paul doesn't want to tell you anything more than he pushes buttons and that he's going to show you the software. So next slide, please, Paul. So the technology landscape within L&D is changing all of the time. And as you can see by the amount of different organisations that are new to me, I mean, we've been coming here for a long time. This is my 8th year. And there's lots of different names and brands, which shows you that technology is constantly changing. So I'm going to ask you a few questions and try and find out a little bit about what you're using. So Paul, if you hit enter, who in the audience has an LMS? Almost everyone. Next button. Who has an LXP? Only one. Only one of you has an LXP. Next button. A talent marketplace. Does anyone think they have a talent marketplace? No? Next button. Does anyone think they have one system that does it all? No. So what Paul and I are going to try and talk to you about is the difference between those platforms, how they work together, and then we're going to show you what we do. So next slide, please, Paul. So most people would know Cornerstone for being the leading LMS. We've been around for about 22 years, and today we kind of dominate the market in terms of organisations looking for a very robust system where they want to do assigned and engaging learning. And what's happened in the last 5 years is the perception of what people want from a learning system has changed. For a while, organisations were starting to believe that the LMS is dead. That's absolutely not true. And anyone that's tried to operate purely with an LXP has swiftly found out that they need that governance and that robustness of an LMS engine that helps you schedule, report, and drive assigned learning. And so we started trying to build our own LXP to give that next generation experience. But what we found is that Edcast was already out in the market doing a really great job. And so to accelerate our capability and try and have a best-in-class solution for both, we retained what we was doing so great with Cornerstone, but we let Edcast be the engine for how our learners engage. And so that's how we ended up with both Edcast and Cornerstone. And you're going to get to see both of those systems. Next slide, please, Paul. So this is kind of a matrix that shows you how they hang together. So today, an LXP really sits over the top of your content, over the top of your LMS, perhaps a third-party skills matrix or competency system, and that gives you the top layer. In the middle, you have the fabric of the LMS, which is the bit that starts to tell the employee where they perhaps have skills gaps or things that they need to work on. You might have a development plan. It tells the management team where they need to be working so that we can assign learning and drive our development programs. And then the bottom tier of this is really where you, as the LMS or learning administration team, start to see data. So that's that engine when you can report on compliance. And Paul, if you just click through these quickly, how we kind of cut that is at the top bit is me as the learner, how I interact with our learning experience. The middle bit is the we, that's where learning admin, management and employees come together. And the bottom piece is the you, where you as a learning or talent administration team use your software to drive your strategy and make decisions on data. Next slide, please. So this kind of just finally shows you a little bit about what the two platforms do. And I've talked about Cornerstone. We have a very robust LMS that's updated quarterly, 4 times a year. But it had all of the advanced learning and talent management capabilities that organizations needed, but wasn't yet that next generation learning platform that allows you to deliver learning at point of need, in the flow of work, in your productivity skills, in your productivity tools. So today, we are all desperate for time. 10 years ago, if someone said they were implementing an LMS, they'd probably say they were doing that. It's because they wanted one point of call to find knowledge, one place for policies, one place for resources, one place for learning content. Today, that's not the case, because even when you make it frictionless and you use all of your single sign-on and tools available to you so they don't have to log in, there's still a friction in me having to go to one platform to find learning. And that's why we look to Google or YouTube to educate ourselves. So what Edcast does, it allows us to take all of that juice that you get in an LMS and push it out to them where they are, which might be in Slack or Teams or Google. So without further ado, I think I'll probably hand over to Paul, and together we'll start to show you what that software looks like, where the LMS stops and where the LXP starts. So Paul, over to you.
Yeah, okay, thanks Luke. You hear me all right? How's that? Oh yeah, there we go. You can hear me now. All right, good. Cool. So where I'm going to start is I guess with the LMS, because one of the key things that's kind of binds together an LMS and an LXP is really to do with skills. So how do we get skills that people have in them, which is understood about themselves? How do we then use that information inside of an LXP to sort of drive recommendations, try and help people with understanding what kind of learning they could do to develop themselves? And so within Cornerstone, what you have is a skills profile. Now this is using a skills ontology that we have put into the system. It's got something like 53,000 different skills from across pretty much every sector that you could imagine. And what it will do is it will simply just take one thing and it will start to help people understand what kind of skills they have. So in our example here, we've got Ella. She's a customer service manager. And really just using that job title, the system will then start to understand what type of skills Ella is likely to have because she's a client services manager. And so she's been through a bit of this process already. So what you can see is down here at the bottom, we've got where it's saying skills you might have. So what the system is just looking at is picking up client services manager. Here's a bunch of skills we think you probably have. And that's, using that skills AI. And so from that, what I'm able to then start to do is I can then say, okay, well, actually, maybe I do have that skill. I want to add that to my profile. Maybe I'd like to develop that. So I can easily add something like this to my profile, and it will then come and sit in my area up here where I've got my particular skills. So it will then start to identify all those different. I can say, these are the skills I have. And then from there, there's a variety of different things I can then start to do with them. So I can say, actually I'd like to develop this one a little bit further because maybe I'm, thinking I need to do a little bit more work on that. Or I could simply just say, okay, I can rate my proficiency. And I can give a rating scale out of that. We can also rate my interests. So if I'm thinking about career mobility, if I'm interested in a particular skill, then the system can start to identify role profiles for me and then start saying, okay, you like doing this type of skill. Here's some opportunities for you, roles which we think could be interesting for you. So I can add those things into my profile with skills I've got to develop. I can ask other people who I work with to give me some, request some feedback from them. And those people who've maybe given me some feedback are able to then start to say, how good am I at some of these skills? So you can see where my peers rate me, where my manager rates me, where I rate myself. And even the system can start to help me a little bit with making recommendations about some of that learning that's already there. So getting that later into the system, it is straightforward. There's a wizard that will walk everybody through it. And then from a manager perspective, Ella here is one of our sort of managers. What she's then able to do is look across the whole of her team and try to understand what type of skills exist within her team. So, work in the client services department, maybe you work in manufacturing, someone's off sick, someone's off ill. How do I quickly identify which one of my team members actually have the skills that could go, work on the help desk, work on a machine, or whatever it might be that the requirement is. So this skills matrix is pretty, it gives me a really simple way to identify who's got the skills, who doesn't have the skills. And anybody who maybe doesn't have some of those skills, I can quickly identify what they might be, assign them any of the training that may then be available or applicable for whatever it is that we want them to actually do. So as a manager, I can easily upskill my team members without too much to go. So that's all the key skills that are stored inside of the LMS and how we can help you with tracking that. Now we're going to move into the LXP and just give you a bit of an idea about how it all pulls together.
And just before you move on, I'll just briefly add. So if you think about my slide where I was showing the me, we, and you, this would definitely be the we. So there's a really big, robust engine behind this that understands the skills or the competencies required for the role. And this allows both the user to be able to track where they are in terms of their aspirations for the next role or their core capabilities needed for this role. And behind the scenes, you can also take that helicopter view. So as an organization, you can look at capability matrix, or you can start to see where you've got bench strength or where you have gaps to meet the needs of the workforce. So this is that LMS bit where we're now going to start to hand over to the LXP learner experience that perhaps wouldn't have this type of structure underneath it to control all of the competencies associated with the role, etc. Sorry, Paul.
That's right. Thank you. So where we will go next is actually straight to Google. So one of the key places, obviously, where most people go, a lot of people, as Luke sort of mentioned earlier, is first place people might go to try and find out a new skill is they'll just go to Google. So they'll be looking, I want to develop, I'm here doing a presentation, I want to develop my presentation skills. So I can do quick search in Google. And then the great thing about the LXP in Cornerstone is that it is linked in with Google. And so I can run a quick search, and you can see it's thinking about it.
The Excel Wi-Fi is letting us down.
Yeah, exactly. And then it will start to bring back, he says, in a moment, some training from inside of the LXP. You've got to love these type of events when there's everybody here and they're all looking and they're all expecting to see something quite fantastic. And trust me, it is, but it's not here just yet, unfortunately.
Be brave and hit refresh, Paul.
Sorry?
So
there, yeah.
Hey, there we go.
There we go. So I'm going to blame Excel for this one. But effectively, what you can then start to see is rather than somebody then starting to go off on their own and find something on YouTube and going off and develop something themselves, there actually may be some fantastic knowledge that you have within your organization. So that could either be content that you've curated yourselves as an organization. It could be some content you've bought from one of the many providers that are going to be here today. Or it could be tacit knowledge that's been created by colleagues of yours who work inside your organization. So all those subject matter experts you've got inside your organization that can easily create content in the LXP, and you're then from here able to find any of that content. Maybe someone even's left your organization. That knowledge that was within your organization is still retained within there, and you can go through and you can go straight into the LXP here, where you can access any of that content. So you can watch your video, mark it as complete, I can like it, I can comment, I can share it. If I want to share it with anybody who I work with, anybody who's in my team, any groups I might be part of within my organization, I can share that piece of knowledge directly into any of those particular groups for anybody there to be able to access. So the LXP, though, is integrated fully within the LMS, and whilst we see in this particular area we're looking at also recommended training, this is using some of those skills that we talked about earlier. So these are some of the skills that I'm looking to develop. These are the skills that I want to work on. These are the places I want to develop, and so the LXP is then able to recommend all of this learning to me really simply and easily. And again, I can go into any of these courses, I can share, I can comment, bookmark, etc., all of this kind of stuff. The other key aspect you have, obviously, with an LMS, as Luke mentioned, is about that mandatory training. So how do we make sure people do all that training we need them to do, maybe a regulated industry or whatever, wherever you might work. You've got people that need to do some of that training, and so that can also be pulled through, surfaced with the LXP, and make it really easy and obvious for you to take any of that particular training there as well. There's other things in here, people you may follow, things you may be interested in knowing more about, and anything that's been promoted from you as well. But you can also have sort of discovery pages. So if you want to make it really a simple and engaging process for someone to learn, as maybe a new onboarder into your organization, how do they, get welcomed into your organization? How do they understand about diversity in your organization or skills? And you can have lots of different onboarding processes that are tailored in around one specific topic to make it easy for you to sort of engage with that, follow that, and watch whatever you want. You may have academies, so you've got people getting trained in slightly different aspects of that as well. Easy for you to see all of that and track all of that activity. And any subject matter experts within your organization who are those people? Maybe we want to follow those because they've got similar type skills to me and that I'm looking to develop, so I can follow those people. They can be setting up mentoring conversations or coaching conversations with us in here as well. So if I think actually, well, I would like to learn one of these new skills, there's pathways available for me in here which I can access. So lots of different types of training. This is skill of the month, so maybe I want to look what it looked like in October or December last year or wherever it was. I can go through into any of these and start to interact, take any of that content that's maybe relevant for me here as well. And as well as that, I obviously get a badge, for example, for completing it, watching the videos, creating any of the content, watching any of the content, and engaging with it as we might want to, and just working our way slowly through all of those different aspects of it. So that's one of the key things that we're able to offer to help with engagement. But people can always create any of their own content as well. So pieces of learning that from tacit knowledge, maybe they've got found a great article they want to share, they want to upload something, they've got a text card, they've got live events. You can even do polls and down to sort of live screening like Facebook Live and things like that can be put through here as well. Now the final thing really I was going to touch on is more about, obviously, as Luke mentioned, everybody's very time poor at the moment, so how do we make sure that the training is available to us at any particular point in time? And so what we have the ability to do is embed the exact same platform inside of tools and productivity tools like Teams. Now there's lots of other examples like Slack, ServiceNow, Google Suite, etc., all of those. But in this example, what I can quickly see is exactly the same sort of experience that I had in the actual platform, but this time, rather than me having to go and find it, it's embedded for me right there in Teams, so I don't have to go out and find that content. It's there, it's available for me to access, and I don't have to go off to any of my other tools to do that. So I think that was kind of going to be it, Luke. So anything else?
Does anybody want to ask us any questions? Any questions from the audience? No? Perfect. Well, I suppose I'll leave by saying thank you, Paul. Thank you for joining us. What we wanted to try and show you there is that there is still a need for an LMS. You still need a tool that can robustly drive learning, particularly in a compliance or regulated environment. But what an LXP should do is allow you to take the path of least resistance to learning, but within your organization. And so the biggest competitor that you probably face internally with any learning technology is productivity tools like Teams or Slack, YouTube, or perhaps Google. And so what an LXP should do is allow you to drive your own content and L&D agenda, but still allow the learners to access that content from wherever they're coming from. So without further ado, we'll probably close off and leave it there. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you.